Yo, what's up guys, I'm Yanick from the Produce School, and in this video I will show you how to make house music and new disco like Prospa.
Don't ask me to stay, I'm already gone. You better get up out my way, this soul is moving on.
Prospa are known for their unique blend of house music with disco influences, and they really take inspiration from old disco tracks but with a modern house touch. And the tracks like This Rhythm or If You Want My Loving really embody that sound. In this video I'll be breaking down all the steps, bass, drums, synths and instruments, vocals and more. All the sounds that I'm using in this video come from our brand new house producer pack called Motion, which has a lot of really cool sounds in it, like presets, samples, project files, vocals. Basically every sound that I'm using in this video also comes from that pack. If you want to support it or find more information about it, then click the link over here or click the link in the description, which goes to our website, theproduceschool.com. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and with that being said, let's get straight into this. I'm going to start off with the bass of the track. For it, I'll be using an instance of Serum with this preset called Erase from our Motion pack. And as the description says, it's a plucky Juno bass. And that's because we used some Juno wavetables for this one. So it consists out of a square wave like this, which is put down 2 octaves, and then a saw wavetable, which is put down 1 octave. And it creates a really full bass sound. There's an envelope with a pretty short decay going to the filter cutoff, which really gives it that plucky sound we want to go for. And also a pretty high resonance to get more of a funky disco touch to the sound. There are not many effects on this sound. First of all, there's a hyper, which is just used for macro, so it's turned off basically. Then a delay, which is also for macro, which is also not turned on right now. You could turn it on a little bit, but let's just leave it very dry. And then there's an EQ, which puts a little bit of the mid frequencies. Adds a bit more warmth and character to the sound, which is great. So that's the sound I'll be using to create the bass. Let's write down a bass pattern. I'm going to start off with the rhythm for it, which will be something like this. This will be the rhythm that I will use for the bass for this track. And right now it's only on C, which will be the root note of the track, but that's a bit boring and you want a nice and groovy bass line for a track really similar to Prospa. So let's change up some notes and create a groovy and funky bass line. Let's try going up 1 octave. And let's start tweaking some of the lengths of these notes. Make this one a bit shorter, maybe move this one to the left. That's better. A little bit more groovy. Now it's playing this funky kind of bass melody, but every time at the first bar it's hitting the C, which is the root note of the track. This will be the melody for the bass, and every first hit it's on the C, which is the root note of the track, which keeps it a little bit easier for the listener. Now I'm just gonna copy this all over because I think it's a pretty great melody and I think we can use it throughout the whole track. Maybe extend this last note a little bit more. And let's put this in the playlist over here. Now let's look for a kick to layer underneath the bass line. I want to look for something punchy. This one sounds pretty cool. There's a nice top end to it as well, which is great. That works. Now let's add some effects to this bass line. Let's lower down the volume. Let's add an EQ to remove a little bit of the high end. And a kickstart for some side chaining. Let's use the second shape. And the mix not all the way up. But we still have some groove from the bass line. And for now, in terms of processing and mixing, I think it sounds fine. Really don't hear anything that this bass would need more. So let's just leave it like that. I added some more drums that sound together like this. And now let me just explain you all the layers and what's all going on for the drums. First of all, the kick that we just laid down already. This one. Then there are 2 layers of claps and snares. First of all, there's this kind of disco snare with a nice pre-shift. And if you look closely into the playlist, you can see that I put it before the kick hits. And it's because it has this pre-shift. And it really works well to put a snare like this one just before the kick hits. So the transient of the snare is a little bit earlier, which creates a nice pre-shift. Then this clap, which has a little bit of reverb on it. And it's also, if you zoom in closely, before the kick hits. And then at the end of every 4 bars, I reverse the clap and put it before it, so it kind of sucks you back into it. Very easy trick to do. To add some more energy to the second part of the drop, I layered another clap underneath it, which is this one. I put a reverb on it with a pretty high wet level and a lower dry level, which makes it sound more in the background and really like spacey. And it's just adding a little bit more room to the overall clap and snare. It really helps with the energy of the second part of the drop. Then there's offbeat snare, which is the same as this snare, same sample playing over here. It's also lower in volume, and that helps with the groove of the track. Then this acoustic head loop, which is really important, with some open heads in it as well. We have like a couple of those head loops in the motion pack. They are over here. We have 10 acoustic head loops like these. And they are perfect for these kind of new disco or house tracks. They really set the rhythm and groove. Then there is this bongo or percussion sample, which plays over here. This sample really simple. It really adds that disco touch to the track. And also another snare, which is really low in volume. Almost like a ghost snare. It also really helps with the rhythm of the track and groove. And then a crash at every first bar over here, which is a very simple 909 crash. And then this simple crash fill here. For the second part of the drop, there are a few more elements incoming. First of all, there is this high percussion sound, which is like a cowbell. And it basically plays on every kick. Just for some variation and also a little bit more like tonal sounds for the drums. Then a very simple 1/8 note closed head to add a bit more energy. Another acoustic head loop, which is more open, but it's low in volume and it basically plays on every offbeat over here. And a very simple shaker loop. And then all together it sounds like this. I added a bunch of effect sounds like this vinyl noise, which you can hear in a lot of these house tracks or disco tracks. Really gives that old school touch, even though it's just made in a digital program. Some ambience from a bar, and then this very high string sound, which just stays on the root note of the track and is quite low in volume. And then at the second part of the drop, there's this disco laser hit and a white noise downlifter, just really low in volume. To keep things a little bit more interesting than just the bass and the drums that are playing in the first part of the drop, there are a few more elements coming in the second part of the drop, which first of all are these pad sounds, which play these chords. The first sound is this electric kind of Rhodes piano. preset in Serum. Has some nice noise in it as well. And it's playing the C minor chord. And then at the end of the second part of the drop, it's playing this G minor chord. For some variation. And if you look closely to the notes, you can see that they are a little bit strummed. So they are not exactly hitting at the same time. And in FL Studio, you can do this really easily by selecting Option or Alt plus S, and then you can strum it with this strum tool. So that's what I did for these chords. Makes it sound a little bit more realistic as well. On this electric piano, I added an EQ to remove a bunch of the low frequencies because the bass already taken care of that. Just a really simple low cut. And then there is a reverb, which put it in a bigger space. And a fruity balance, which is not doing anything at this moment. Another layer that's playing these chords is this pad sound, also in Serum, with a preset called Hypnotize. Detune saw pad with a very high resonance, which is something you can hear in a lot of older disco or French house tracks. Playing the exact same chords, but a little bit higher. And as you can see in the mix, it's pretty low in volume. But it's just there to make these roads sound a little bit bigger. So basically a layer underneath it. There's an EQ on there, which removes a bunch of the low frequencies. And that's it for the sound. I also changed up the bass a little bit, as you can see here at the end of the drop, because the chord changed to G minor, so I made sure that every first note starts on a G. Plays a little bit of a different melody, but still the same rhythm. And that's what really keeps the drop interesting. Then on top of everything, I added a guitar loop, which sounds like this. It's a really funky kind of muted guitar loop from our pack. There's actually no processing going on. The only thing what I did was that I pitched it down one semitone because the sample was in C sharp minor and this track is in C minor, so I had to pitch it down. But that's basically it for the sample. I think it just fits perfectly on this beat here. And then at the end of every 4 bars, there is another guitar sample, which plays some chords. And also adds that typical kind of disco touch to the track. For this guitar, I think there is some processing going on. An EQ with the radio presets to make it sound like really vintage and old. A phaser, so it phases even more than the sample already did. Really typical French house thing to do. And then a delay. Just a simple one, snap delay. Of course, this track needs a vocal, so I was looking in the motion pack, looking for a nice hook to use. And I'm using this hook called Soul is Moving On.
Don't ask me to stay, I'm already gone.
Really typical kind of Prospa style vocal. I chopped it up a little bit more so it fitted exactly on this beat. And let me play it first with all the effects on it.
Don't ask me to stay, I'm already gone.
So for the effects on this vocal, we can look right here in the mixer.
Don't ask me to stay, don't ask me to stay.
There's an EQ which removes a little bit of the low frequencies.
Don't ask me to stay.
And boosts a little bit of the high end.
Don't ask me to stay, I'm already gone.
But since these vocals were already properly processed when making the sample pack, this didn't need that much. A slap delay.
Don't ask me to stay.
With Fruity Delay 3. Nothing crazy.
Don't ask me to stay.
And then a reverb.
Don't ask me to stay.
With a quite short decay time and low wet level.
Don't ask me to stay. Don't ask me to stay.
And if you look at the bottom of the mixer, you can see that I put the stereo separation knob down like almost all the way. I did this to make it more mono.
Don't ask me to stay.
Which gives it more of an old school feeling, like it was sampled from some older record, because mostly that was in mono. So if you put it more mono, mono. It makes it sound a little bit more old school, which worked for this track. And then at the end of first part of the drop, I added this ad-lib. There are some different effects on it, like this EQ with the radio preset, which makes it more sound in the background of the track. Basically the same delay and a reverb that's a little bit more wet than the other one. And it works perfectly for the transition between the first and second part of the drop. And that's basically it for this Prospa style track. If you want to get your hands on the project file of this video, then check out our pack Motion, because this is one of the project files that is included in the pack. We also made this one in Ableton and Logic Pro. So if you're using a different DAW than FL Studio, you can still open it there. Now let me play the final result for you one more time.
Don't ask me to stay, I'm already gone. You better get up out my way, this soul is moving on. Oh, yeah.
If you have any questions about this video, then feel free to drop a comment. And for now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a next video.